afternoon, St. Lucie County 5th graders. This is Mrs. LaShawn Ashton, and I am so excited to be here with you today. We only have 2 more weeks until the school year is over. You guys have done such a great job, and you've worked so hard during these circumstances and really shown how you guys can overcome anything that's thrown at you. So that's amazing. Before you know it, you'll be in 6th grade and moving into middle school. So today we're going to look at actually a text I looked at last week and a new text. So if you're in Canvas, you'll be revisiting the Westward Expansion introduction that we looked at last week. And then we will be visiting this one out of the Journeys book, Lewis and Clark. But it will be PDF'd, obviously, because you don't have your books. So let's talk about that. So as always, we always start a new text with 1:1 and 2:4. However, this Journeys text is very long, so I'm only going to read probably about 2 pages to you so you get the gist of it. We're going to go over this too. So when we talk about that, and we have 2 texts, we usually look at, we're going to look at the point of view of each text. So we're going to look at the standard RI 2.6 because it's informational text. It's not literature. And RI 2.6 says, analyze multiple accounts of the same event or topic, noting important similarities and differences in the point of view they represent. So I know we've talked about point of view a little bit. We talked about, some people might really like chocolate chips and some people might not, but that's their point of view. If you guys are at the same event and you see something happen, your take on it and what you say could be different from the other person. I'm sure everybody's been through that. They've both been someplace where they've seen something, they've watched a movie, and their point of view is like, I really like the movie. These are the reasons why I like the movie. So you're justifying your reasons why you liked it. But somebody else could have seen the same movie and was like, nah, I didn't really like it. Wasn't that great, and list their reasons. So it's really looking at the differences in the point of view in the similarities and differences. So let's get started. So I'm going to read this to you really fast. This is what we know from last week, so I already know this, so I want to refresh your memories and read this to you. Westward Expansion, Introduction to Westward Expansion. The Louisiana Purchase. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson bought a huge portion of land west of the Mississippi. He bought this land from France. The new territory was called the Louisiana Purchase. It more than doubled the size of the United States. The Louisiana Purchase cost $15 million total. That amounts to about 3 cents an acre. The land included 828,000 square miles of new land. The new Americans would be responsible for exploring and settling much of its huge continent. The age of westward expansion was about to start. Manifest Destiny. By the 1840s, Americans envisioned a nation that spread from sea to shining sea. They felt that it was their duty to spread out across the land. The belief in young democracy was so strong that Americans wanted to spread it across the entire continent. To them, exploring and cultivating new territory was the destiny of the young country and its citizens. Soon the phrase Manifest Destiny was echoing in newspapers and political speeches. The West was the embodiment of American optimism. Many American adventurers would go west to seek their fortunes. So this article is talking about the Louisiana Purchase and the Manifest Destiny. So basically that Thomas Jefferson bought the huge piece of land, which was called the Louisiana Purchase, and then the Manifest Destiny. Okay, so I just want to revisit that and go over that. Then, Lewis and Clark. So we're moving into the Journey book. I'm just going to read the first 2 pages, and then we're going to talk about similarities and differences in points of view, or what we see in one that we don't see in the other, and vice versa. Okay, Lewis and Clark. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson doubled the size of the United States after completing an agreement with France called the Louisiana Purchase. Does that sound familiar? He had acquired the vast Louisiana territory west of the Mississippi River. We already know that. Jefferson decided to form an expedition throughout the unexplored territory to the Pacific Ocean. He asked Meriwether Lewis to lead a group called the Corps of Discovery. Lewis chose William Clark to help him as co-leader. In 1804, Lewis and Clark began their journey from St. Louis, Missouri. They traveled through the Great Plains and they stopped for the winter season. A trader and his wife, a Native American named Sacagawea, joined the expedition when it resumed its journey in April 1805. So it has a caption. It says, Lewis considered the Mandan Indians' stories about huge bears to be fanciful tales until one of the explorers was chased by a grizzly bear. So they didn't believe it until he was actually chased by one. And there's a picture right there. William Clark had perhaps the best eyesight of any crew member. On May 26th, he saw the outline of a great mountain range to the west. In the next few days, all the explorers could see the snow-covered Rocky Mountains on the horizon. The sight was inspired as well as troubling. The explorers knew they would have to find a way to cross the incredible barrier. Before they could cross the Rockies, the Corps of Discovery faced the Great Falls of the Missouri River in present-day Montana. Here, the river tumbled down a bluff that was as high as a modern 6-story building. The roar of the water was deafening. Lewis called it the grandest sight I have ever beheld. But the waterfall meant that the explorers had to carry their boats and supplies up steep cliffs before they could set out again on quieter waters upstream. Traveling around the falls took the party 24 days and left everyone exhausted. And there's a caption, the Great Falls of the Missouri River was a beautiful sight, but also were difficult to travel around. And there is the picture of that. So, let's talk about the standards. I'm going to read the standard to you again. So it's RI 2.6, analyze multiple accounts of the same event or topic, noting important similarities and differences in the point of view they represent. So, in this article, Louisiana Purchase, or the Westward Expansion, they talk about Louisiana Purchase. They say Thomas Jefferson bought it, it was west of the Mississippi, and it was double the size of the United States. And then it talks in the bottom last sentence says, many American adventurers would go west to seek their fortunes. But that's all it talks about. Did it talk about Lewis and Clark? No. Did it talk about the Indians? No. So, this text, Lewis and Clark, the very first 1-2 sentences talks about how President Thomas Jefferson doubled the size of the United States by purchasing land from the French called the Louisiana Purchase. And it was west of the Mississippi River. So they start out exactly the same. First paragraph in this and the first paragraph in the journeys. Same thing. Now, what's the difference? Correct. The difference is this Lewis and Clark text goes on and tells you more about the explorers, particularly who? Lewis and Clark. So we hadn't quite gotten to see exactly what they did, but we know that Lewis and Clark was a pair and that they started the, where did it say? It was the Corps of Discovery. So they were discovering the land and they were traveling westward. Just like it says in the bottom sentence here, many American adventurers would go west to seek their fortunes. However, it doesn't talk about the Indians at all in this. And when you go throughout the rest of the story, it does talk about them in great detail and how they helped with the westward expansion. So like anything you read with multiple accounts, you can read something on the same topic. One might skim the issue and one might talk more about it and go more in depth. Like the Louisiana Purchase article just talks about that and doesn't go into depth about what actually happened with the explorers. So if you do not have access to Canvas and you haven't been able to get on, I want you to research or look up or even look in the newspaper if you have one or a magazine and find something on 2 topics. And I want you to read both items and see what is similar and what is different. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you back here on Wednesday. Bye, guys.